Hey, welcome to Therapy Matters. I'm Claudiu Manea and I'm the second greatest therapist in the world. I want to talk to you about 13 things that are wrong in this world and what you can do about it and how we can go about fixing them. 13 things is far from being an exhaustive list. There are a whole bunch of things that are wrong in this world, but these are the things that are bugging me the most and that I think that have the greatest impact on the quality of our lives and where we are going as the human race and as civilization. So, to start things off, let's address the first thing on this list, which is that critical thinking is at an all-time low in the world today. And just to give you an example, I want to remind you of the sort of tagline that was used during the pandemic, and that is that the tagline went like this: I believe in science. So, just to put things into context, the work can be viewed from two points of view, two differing points of view: the scientific point of view and the religious point of view. There is no third option. I mean, being agnostic is not really an option. It's just you being undecided. So no, there are just two perspectives: religious and scientific. Religious perspective means that you believe in something, a higher power, a higher entity, that you believe in divinity, and that you do not require proof to validate your belief, which is the basis of the entire religious philosophy. So I believe in something, I do not need to prove it. Simply by believing it, I know that it's there. So I don't need to prove it to myself or to anyone else. The other perspective, the scientific one, is just the opposite of the religious belief. The scientific belief means that I do not believe anything. I try to take things as they are. I try to remain as objective as I can be in order to ensure that whatever conclusions I arrive at are objective, correct, and adequate in the context of what I'm trying to demonstrate. So the scientific approach means basically that you are making an assumption, which is called a hypothesis, and then you are trying to demonstrate that hypothesis, or to demonstrate the opposite of that hypothesis. So you are not. So science is not based on your beliefs. Science is based on experiments and on trying to prove something by conducting a scientific experiment, by doing something. So it's not it's not based on beliefs. It's based on scientific reality, and it's based on not on what you believe, but on what you can prove, on what you can demonstrate. So saying that you believe in science actually makes you a moron, because science is not something that you should believe in. Science is meant to be used as an instrument to understand how the world works and how things around us work and how the world operates. You are not supposed to believe in science, because that invalidates the whole point of science. But this whole tagline just goes to show that critical thinking is really going down the drain, because I don't think that 50 years ago people would have got away with saying dumb stuff like that. Now they can, because critical thinking is really scarce these days. And this brings us to the next point of things that are wrong in this world, and that is that anxiety is at an all-time high, and to my estimates, it's around 80 to 90%, and it's affecting 80 to 90% of the people. If I were to tell you 3 years ago, before all this pandemic stuff hit, that I think that 80 to 90% of people are suffering from anxiety, would you have believed me? Probably not. What about now? What about now, when you've seen how it all plays out? You've seen how just a minor threat to people's lives makes them go crazy and makes them go around trying to kill other people, or at least wishing them dead. What about this particular threat to people's lives, the COVID virus, was so chilling, was so different than all of the other things that might kill you any given day? Well, first of all, it was the publicity, which was perpetrated by all of mass media, and then it was the unknown. And anxiety is actually pretty much based on the fear of unknown. So anxiety didn't appear when the pandemic appeared. It was there, it was dormant, it wasn't it expressed itself in various situations, in various areas of people's lives, but it wasn't so obvious. Then the pandemic hit and everybody went crazy. So the anxiety was already there. It wasn't induced by the pandemic, it was just amplified by the pandemic. And now that the pandemic is more or less over, the anxiety is still there. It's not going away just because the threat went away. Because anxiety is not dependent on the threat that you are exposed to, because, like I said, you are exposed to life-endangering threats pretty much all the time. It's not going away just because the threat went away. It's still there, and it's still a problem, and it's going to be an ever-growing problem if we don't go about fixing it. But of course, having citizens that are terrified by a whole bunch of things is actually pretty useful for governments who are looking to become more and more authoritarian. So people who think by themselves, this leads us to our first point, the critical thinking, and people who are not so susceptible to anxiety are more difficult to rule, and they are more difficult to terrorize, and they are more difficult to threaten. So from a totalitarian regime point of view, it's better to have people this way than to have them as balanced, healthy, and fulfilled individuals. because those individuals aren't really something that you can work with all that easy. So it's easier to have them be a bunch of sheep that are scared of their own shadow, because then you can just maneuver them as you will. So it's not up to governments to fix this, it's up to us. Then the people, as they go about fixing their lives, then they can inflict or start to induce change in the governments that rule them, not the other way around. It doesn't go the other way around, because governments have no incentive to fix this. In fact, they have incentive to make this even worse. And this leads us to the third point of our discussion, which is that men are increasingly becoming more weak and more cowardly. So this I can attribute this to a whole bunch of things, but two things that I think are the main culprit of this weakening of the men is the feminization of men and the good times that humanity has seen in the past 60-70 years, right after the World War II. So it was Plato in the Republic who said that good times make weak men make bad times make strong men bring good times, and then it all repeats itself. It's like an ever-ending cycle. So we are in that part of the cycle in which good times gave rise to weak men, and weak men cannot be really relied upon to fix anything, because they can't really be relied upon to take charge of anything, not their own lives, not the lives of others. And this goes to this shows in society as a general concept, but it also shows in much smaller organizational units like families. Men are increasingly unable to fulfill their duties as heads of the household. And that's in part due to women wanting to act like men and take charge and so on. But that's not the whole answer, and that's not the single cause of this. Sure, some women push to be more masculine and to behave more masculine, but that's not the only thing happening. The thing that is happening is that women push and men step aside. That's the problem. I mean, if men wouldn't step aside from their responsibilities, women could push all they want. They wouldn't get their way eventually. But if men cooperate with this, then this is what happens. And this goes to our fourth point of the discussion, which is that women are increasingly disappointed in men and their own lives as a consequence of that. And that's because women don't necessarily, I mean, some women do, but women in general don't necessarily want to take the place of the man. But when a man steps aside and refuses to perform his duties as the head of a family, the woman feels sort of this need to compensate, to uh, to take his place and to do what the man cannot do or will not do. And this makes women miserable because, first of all, they don't want to do that. Most of them, like I said, some do, but many of them do not. And second of all, because even if we're talking about a woman that wants to do that, she sooner or later finds out that it's not something that she really wants to do all the time. It's not something that she wants to. Uh, it's not. It's not who she wants to be, who she wants to live as. So women are becoming increasingly disappointed in men, and the fact that they need to do this, and the fact that men allowed them to do that. And this leads us to our fifth point, which is that family is an increasingly obsolete concept. Roles in families are becoming increasingly unclear and confused, and this makes everyone in the family become confused and unhappy and unsatisfied with their lives. Because when you know what you have to do and you know that you can rely on your other family members to do what they need to do, this makes you feel at peace and it lets you focus on what you have to do. But if nothing is really clear, if you can't really rely on a structure, if you can't really rely on your significant other to do stuff, then it's just chaos. It's just useless, and it's bound to increase your anxiety, by the way, because anxiety is at an all-time high for a whole bunch of reasons. And some of those reasons are symptoms, but there are also causes of the whole problem. The sixth point that I want to talk about is that mental disorders are becoming statute symbols and reasons to brag about, not things that are sort of shunned or criticized by society. Mental disease, there used to be a time where if there was something wrong with you, or if what you did was hurting others, then society would push back. Some people would criticize you. People would look at you in a judgmental way, and that was a bad thing on the one hand, because okay, you can't live your life thinking about what society thinks about it, but it was also a good thing in some cases, because you can't really condone any behavior. I mean, if you have 3 kids and then you decide to abandon them because you can't handle the responsibilities of changing diapers and having some other person rely on you, then you should be criticized, you should be ostracized, you should be put in your place, you should have people tell you that that's wrong, that you shouldn't do that. And maybe that sort of shame that this whole reaction of the society causes in you gets you to pause and think and maybe rethink how you view things, and maybe come to a better conclusion, and maybe become a better person because of that. But if you take all of that away, then you're free to do whatever the hell that you want to do without any consequence. And that's bad. that makes people, that brings out the worst in people, because people have really, really dark things happening inside of them. And let me tell you that as a therapist, I've been exposed to a whole lot that of that badness, and I've seen it, I've felt it, I've been around it, the I've looked that crap straight in the eyes, and it's terrible and it's terrifying, and you should be afraid of that. And you should, um, you should be afraid of the darkness that is in you and in other people, and you should try to oppose it with every strength and every might that you can. So yeah, it's real. Sorry, but there's this book called The Lucifer Effect, and it's about the potential for destruction that lies in every human being, and that potential for destruction is terrible. It's as great and as powerful as the other side of as the more bright side of the human being, which is the potential for creation, for creativity, and for love. The potential for destruction is at least as powerful as the potential for good. So you should be aware of it, you should fight it, and you should resist it. It's not metaphorical. I've seen it. Believe me, it's terrible. So when you applaud that darkness that comes out of some people, that's not a good thing. That's really that's a terrible idea, and that's encouraging people to be their worst, actually. Yeah, and we shouldn't do that as a society, as human beings. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't. I'm not saying that we should stone to death people that exhibit traits or behaviors that are not okay. But I'm just saying that we shouldn't applaud them and we shouldn't encourage them. We should criticize the behavior, not necessarily the person, in order to at least get the conversation started about that person changing their ways. I don't know, but mental disease is becoming more and more a status symbol. There used to be a time when people were special, unique, and so on, and to be an object of admiration and so on, because of something that they did, stuff that they did that was exceptional in some way. Not necessarily, I mean, okay, sure, the artists of the world, the athletes of the world, sure, they get fame and all of that, but I'm not just talking about them. I mean, a man could get respect and admiration from the people around him simply because of the things that he did in his life, simply because of the way that he lived according to a set of values and so on. And for a long time that was good enough for a lot of people. But now a lot of people aren't willing to do anything, but they still feel entitled to that notion that they are special and that they should be admired. And the whole discussion was turned upside down, because now you don't get to be special by what you do, but who you are. Even though you didn't do any effort to be who you are, and even if you're not doing any effort to change who you are. It's like I would feel special because I have a beard. even though I didn't do anything to grow this beard. I mean, it's not like I'm taking 10 minutes every day and really concentrate on growing the beard. Like, come on, grow, grow, grow. No, it's I'm not doing something, which is shave. So does it get any easier than that? I mean, uh, can, I can be special by not doing things. That's great. Who wouldn't want that? Well, you shouldn't want that, because it's um, it's all smoke and mirrors, and it leads down a path into nothingness, into meaninglessness. So this leads us to the seventh point that I'm that I want to make, and that is that we live in a world where children and the elderly aren't protected, and that's a really, really big problem, because from a metaphorical point of view, if you don't protect the future, which is the children, and the past, which is the elderly, you really have nothing to stand on. And if you are an adult right now, and you can't really be considered a child or an elderly person, you really have no incentive to be a better person when you think about the fact that when you will become elderly, no one will care about you. No one will give a crap about your life and whatever it is that you are doing. So big problem. And I think that societies that do not protect their children and their elderly are on a path to self-destruction. And this is happening right now in the Western world more and more. And it's appalling, and it's something that we need to wake up to sooner rather than later, because this future that we are creating is a really, really dark one if we don't take care of our past and our future. Which actually leads us to our fourth point, which is that narcissism is at an all-time high, at least from at least in my opinion. I think narcissism is at an all-time high in history. A great deal of blame lies in the social media, because social media gives a voice and a platform to pretty much everybody, and the algorithms, I don't have any proof for what I'm about to say right now, but it seems to me like the algorithms are skewed negatively. So that's because the human psychology is skewed negatively. What this means is that you focus more on the negative than on the positive. You focus more on the downside than on the upside. And that's evolutionary, because the downside might kill you, whereas the upside might make your life better. Okay, but if something might kill you, that's more important and more urgent than something that, okay, might make your life better, but you can live without. So that's the negativity bias, it's called. And I think algorithms in social media operate on that on that same notion, because in order for something to be viral, it needs to it needs to uh, push people's emotions, and it's easier to push, and it's easier and it's more viral to push negative emotions than positive ones. Positive emotions aren't so viral in nature as opposed to negative emotions, which is why I think all the algorithms in social media are skewed negatively. And that, as a consequence, leads to promoting really abnormal behaviors and attitudes, and really troubled individuals as a norm. Um, which leads us to our ninth point, which is that psychopathy is also at an all-time high. And if you don't think that psychopathy is at an all-time high, just think about all the people who posted, not just thought about it, but went to the trouble of posting on social media that they wished that people who refused to get vaccinated would die. Just think about it, because it's been almost 2 years since all this bullshit started, and I'm still having trouble recovering from that. And like I said, remember that I'm a therapist, and I've looked evil right in the eye, and I've looked the darkness inside people right in the eye, and it still terrifies me that people felt okay not only thinking that someone who disagrees with a point of view that you have should die, but that people felt okay to go around and exposing that point of view to the rest of the world. It that's actually a source of trauma for me, and I haven't processed it completely, and I'm not sure how long it will take. And if I come up with a solution to that, I'll let you know. But right now, I'm still in. I'm still kind of shocked about it. But going back to the point, that's psychopathy. I mean, wishing wishing someone to be extinct just because they don't agree with you, that's psychopathy. I mean, let's not sugarcoat things. It's psychopathy, plain, full textbook. It's not, oh, those people were just being anxious. Yes, they were probably being anxious, but the anxiety let loose the psychopathy that was inside of them, and it let it loose like a cannonball. So, okay. Um, in the world of today, certain traits of narcissism and psychopathy can make you be more successful. But you can have those traits without having the entire disorder. So though there are just two traits actually that are useful, and that the first one is high self-esteem, which anyway the narcissist doesn't have high self-esteem. It's false high self-esteem, because it's based on his his sense of false self, which is whatever. If you want to read about it, you can read the article on my website, but it's not genuine high self-esteem. It's false self-esteem. But anyway, false high self-esteem is better than no self-esteem. So yeah, sure, it can help. It can help, it can motivate your behavior, it can make you do things. That's good. Yeah, sure. High self-esteem works, whether it's true or false, whether it's real or false, it in the short run it doesn't matter all that much. And the other trait that's helpful is the ability to self-promote. Narcissists and psychopaths do this really well. They can self-promote extremely well. They can convince other people to follow them. That's actually useful in life. But you can have high self-esteem and you can learn to self-promote without being a narcissist or a psychopath. Those traits exist outside the realm of a mental disorder, so or a personality disorder, because narcissism is a personality disorder. So you don't need to become a narcissist or a psychopath in order to do that. But what you have is social media and the algorithms of social media constantly promoting the narcissists and the psychopaths because it's negativity skewed and because they get more engagement. And then people who are men who are weak and cowards look up to these people and they take them as role models, and they don't really transcend the child psychology. The child psychology. I mean, the child sees his parents as being godlike up until sometime in the adolescence, where he actually starts realizing that his parents are not gods, they're normal people with faults and all of that. He becomes disillusioned and then becomes rebellious, and then eventually he becomes more balanced and reconnects with his parents from an adult point of view this time, and so on. That's the natural order of things. But some people do not reach emotional maturity in that sense, and they become fixated on that my parents are like gods stage. And when it's not their parents, it's a savior, it's someone to look up to. It's, oh no, he's who I want to grow up to be, even though I may be a 40-year-old male, but whatever. And people look up to these troubled individuals and they view them as role models because they have some abilities, like the ability to self-promote, but they take them as role models as a whole. And very few people are to be taken as role models as a whole. If you don't use your own judgment, and that points back to critical thinking and thinking on your own feet and using your head and the brain inside that head. If you don't use your head, you try to emulate a role model that's really not that adequate and that's really not that great as a whole. I mean, it has some positive things to it, but not as a whole. And you are trying to become a horrible person in the process without maybe even realizing it. And that's leading up to the 10th point, which is that respect for your fellow men is starting to dwindle more and more. Like I said, you shouldn't live your life terrorized by what other people think or or if other people are judging you or not. Of course, but you also shouldn't live your life in complete ignorance of the effects of your actions on other people. You can't live your, or you shouldn't, you can, but you shouldn't live your life like an egotistical prick that only thinks about himself, because it will eventually make your life terrible. It will probably end in loneliness, and it will have meant that your life will have accomplished nothing in the end, and that you will have lived without a purpose, without leaving something behind, and you will not have lived your life to the fullest, which actually, having this sense that you're not living your life as you should be, actually increases your fear of dying, because you know that you're going to die eventually, even though you don't necessarily want to think about it. And that not living your life fully increases your fear of dying, which actually increases your anxiety, which actually makes high anxiety makes it harder for you to live your life. So it's a vicious circle from which you cannot escape by being a self-absorbed prick. So no, it's not. It's you shouldn't live your life according to what other people want for you, but you should also shouldn't live your life like you're the only person who is important in this world. And this leads us to the 11th point, which is that people are more and more hating each other instead of resisting oppressive governments and the psychopaths who try to take away their freedoms. And I remember when the pandemic was in full swing, how people in my country used to, I mean, not just in my country, but everywhere, how people were using this tagline, trust in the authorities, which is, I mean, I don't know where you live, but I come from from an ex-communist country, and it was my country, Romania, was communist up until 1990, and to tell someone from an ex-communist country that they should trust the authorities is, I mean, it's laughable, but it also makes you, it also makes me extremely angry, because authorities have been trying to kill me for the past, I don't know how many years, have been trying to kill my family, my grandparents. I'm pretty sure that one of my grandparents actually was killed by the authorities, and I don't know how demented you need to be as a person to say that someone should trust the authorities. I mean, that's something like believing in science. I mean, that's along the same line. I mean, no, you shouldn't trust your government. What, are you, insane? The government doesn't want what's best for you. The government is not your dad. The government is not God. The government is made of a bunch of psychopaths who climb their way to a position of power because they're psychopaths, and who, when in those positions of power, are attempting to consolidate their power, not do what's best for you. What, are you, crazy? I mean, and you shouldn't have lived in an ex-communist country to know this. I mean, even if you are from a Western country that never had to do anything with communism or totalitarian regimes, because that's a whole other point. You still shouldn't trust the government. No, it's like science. Government should always be questioned. You should always push back. This is what keeps governments from becoming totalitarian, the constant pushback of its citizens. What are you, insane? Trust the authorities? If you trust the authorities are going to put you in a labor camp. Dumbass. Now I got really upset. But it's I think that I'm entitled to be upset because people shouldn't be this stupid. And really people shouldn't be this stupid. And okay, I can see not being willing to think on your own, and okay, doing some things because it's easier and so on, but this is I mean, this sort of attitude puts everything at risk. And like I said, we should discourage unhealthy behaviors on the part of our fellow men. And this sort of thing, issuing stupid affirmations like trust in the authorities, is something that should be discouraged extremely powerfully, because it's idiotic. It leads down a path of totalitarian regimes and down a path of extinction of personal freedom. And it's extremely dangerous to be this. It's extremely dangerous to be this stupid. I could understand being stupid on some things. We all are. We all have our moments of stupidity, but this is too much. And and going about hating on people just because they are different than you are, like with smoking. I don't hate people that don't smoke. Why do people have the need to hate people who smoke? I hate smokers. Well, I hate stupid people. So what? So what? I hate smokers. I can't be around them. Well, I hate stupid people and I can't be around them. So what do you plan on doing about that? Get over yourself. But instead of, what about instead of hating smokers? What about instead you hate people who try to impose on other people's freedoms just because they are somewhat inconvenienced? How about that? So if you can't stand the smell of smoke, of cigarette smoke, why don't you just go to a place that doesn't allow smoking? How about that? How about not trying to change the entire world to fit your narrow-minded point of view, and leaving room for other people to have different opinions than you have? Okay, maybe smoking is undefensible as a point of view because it's bad for you. Yeah, whatever. So is government trying to take away your freedom. That's also bad for you. But whatever, you have a problem with smoking. Okay. But how about you leaving room for an opinion different than you have? Because uh, society thrives on being able to talk about and to talk with people who have different ideas and different opinions than you have. That's how we move forward as a species, as a civilization, as whatever you want to call it. It's not just talking to people who have the same ideas as we do, because then we don't learn anything. And in order for you to have a discussion, a civilized discussion with someone who doesn't agree with you, you need to stop trying to kill that person and stop wishing that they were to disappear, so just so that you're not inconvenienced in any way. And that leads us actually to our 12th point, which is that one of the things that another thing that's really wrong in today's world is that the right to free speech is becoming extinct, and that's really, really bad. And that's really obvious in on the internet, in social media, and it's obvious by censorship, by online bullying, and so on. But it's also pretty obvious in society outside of in the offline society, if you know what to look for. I mean, just look at how people react to people who do not think the same things that they think. Just see how aggressive they are, and just see how quickly the interaction escalates to personal attacks and to physical violence. Just see how quickly all of that deteriorates, and you'll get what I'm saying. Free speech is the basis of the entire system of liberties that we have. If free speech is taken away, then everything can be taken away. And trust me, because I am from an ex-communist country, and I know firsthand about all this crap. First, they take away free speech. The next thing is private property, and then you have nothing. So that's not a great idea. You need to be able to at least allow the existence of people that do not agree with whatever you say or whatever you think. And the third and last point is that people are more and more giving up on religion, and religion is becoming more and more obsolete and old school and all of that. And the problem with that is that people have a region in their brain that's responsible for religious activity, religious thoughts, believing in supernatural phenomena, of course, magical thinking as well. The problem is that when you take away religion out of that equation, what you get is an area in our minds and in our brain that needs to that still needs to do something, even though you've taken away the system that was in place up until then. And when you take away that system, the system of an organized religion, what pops in place is something much worse. And it's usually one of these it's usually these things, and it's usually extreme individualism, which we also call narcissism. It's a hedonistical of it's a hedonistical view of the world in which whatever makes me feel good is good for me, which is extremely unhealthy as a general rule. I mean, what makes you feel good in the short run is usually really bad for you in the long run. So having this hedonistical mindset will eventually catch up to you, and um, a lack of purpose and a lack of moral values. So people who give up on religion, or whatever you want to call it, who shun religion away, usually become individualistic, hedonistical. They have they lose purpose in their life, or they don't have such a strong sense of purpose, and they become bitter, resentful, and unsatisfied with their lives, and eventually they start to spew all of that insatisfaction onto others. So, whole bunch of things, 13 things that are wrong with this world. I mean, I could have talked about maybe 100 more, but these are the things that are really bothering me, and things that I think that are having major impact in all of our lives. First of all, do not expect a savior, and at least do not expect the savior in the form of a political leader, of a government, or of anyone else of that nature, because political leaders, political parties, governments have no real incentive of fixing all of these things, because it's better for people in power to have people be this way, to have people be chaotic, self-absorbed, unsatisfied, anxiety-ridden, weak. It's easier to rule these people. So governments have no real incentive of fixing these issues. Governments have all the incentive in the world to exacerbate these issues even more. So it's up to the individual to change something in themselves and around themselves, and then try to exact that change and to push that change upwards to the more complex hierarchies and into society, politics, government, and so on. So it's not top down. It's from down to up. It doesn't work. I mean, people when they get power have no incentive to give that power away. Once you've gained power, you are not going to give that power away willingly. That power needs to be taken away from you. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked in the world. So governments, as they become more and more authoritarian, are not going to willingly ease up and let go of that power. It's only going to get worse. It's only until people start to push back that governments either ease up or go into confrontation, and that usually leads to a revolution and to a changing, a toppling of the government and to a change in regime and blah 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 and so on. You know the drill. But it's not a peaceful process, and it's not something that you can hope to achieve by just wishful thinking. So, like I said in the title of this recording, I want to talk about 13 things that are wrong with this world, but I also want to talk about what you can do to fix those things, or to at least go about starting to fix any of this. Because if we only talk about what is wrong with this world, and we don't come up with at least something that looks like a solution, then we are just feeling sorry for ourselves, and that's really not the point. So what you can do is a whole bunch of things, actually. The first thing you can do is get a grip on your own life, fix what's wrong with your life, fix any mental health issues that you might have, fix any character flaws that you might have, assume responsibility for your life, assume responsibility for people around you, start thinking about your life's purpose. Stop living like a self-entitled prick, center of the universe, because you're not. Start thinking about other people, and that's one thing, which is huge, I know, but it's a life's work endeavor, and that's okay. That's what life is. It's you every day working on yourself to be less of a prick. That's basically it. And people call that personal development. Okay, but I mean, call it whatever you want. And aside from that, as you get a better grip on your life, as you become a person that you would want to hang around with, as you become a person who is doing something good for a change, what you can do is educate yourself more on narcissism, psychopathy, authoritarianism, and all of that, and start to push back. Because narcissists, psychopaths, authoritarian regimes do not stop on their own. They need to be stopped. And if people, and men specifically, are more weak and are behaving in a cowardly way, then there's no one to push back on these individuals, on these disturbed individuals that are trying to gain as much power as they can at the expense of everyone else. If there's no pushback, they just don't stop. They don't stop on their own. They only stop when they get pushback, when they get resistance. It's the same way in your own life. If you have someone in your life who is a narcissist, you know this. He or she only stops when you set a clear and powerful personal limit, and you enforce that limit. They just don't stop because they have this revelation that, okay, they might be hurting you. No, it just doesn't happen. And it's like that on a individual basis, and on a one-on-one basis. And it's the same when we're talking about entire authoritarian regimes. It's the same thing. They don't stop just because they think they are hurting people. They only get stopped. So that's what you can do. That's what you can start working on. You need to, first of all, fix yourself, then go about wanting to fix other things. But I think it's worth doing, because if this doesn't happen, humanity as a whole is on a path to self-destruction, and it's not going to end up any place that anyone would want to live in, really. So that was it for today. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more, please don't forget to hit subscribe and notification bell and all of that blah blah, because I mean, you might be more fluent in all this social media stuff than I am. But like I said, if you want to see more of me, hit subscribe and notification, and hopefully I'll see you next time. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Bye.